Big wins for Marshall and Troy. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. I had meant to look at the total of our subscribers, and it doesn't seem to want to be working right now. It was over 490. My YouTube pages got messed up here, so we're almost at 700. How about that? We had a big weekend, almost at 700. Thank you so much. Celebrating the Jewish holidays, a very nice mitzvah. So thank you so much. Continue to subscribe to YouTube. Please tell your Sunbelt friends and family that are fans. And don't forget about the audio podcasting as well. Apple Podcast and Spotify. And if you listen on Apple, you can rate and review, and that's a big help. Of course, you can get it anywhere you get your podcast from. Just search Locked On Sunbelt. All right, so let's start off with Marshall and Troy. Those were the two teams that got the day off to a really good start for the Sunbelt. Not only did they win, but they were both on national TV. It didn't start out all that great for Marshall, right? Virginia Tech gets the ball and marches right down the field. But all of a sudden, Marshall's offense comes alive. Rasheen Ali had a big day. Cam Fancher wasn't bad, did have a couple of interceptions. But they scored 17 points in the second quarter and going to halftime up 17-10. They had a touchdown in the third, and then they had to hold on for dear life. Virginia Tech gets a touchdown. Kyron Drones was really good, both passing and running for Virginia Tech, the quarterback. He brought him within 7. Marshall had a chance to run out the clock, but couldn't get enough first downs. And Virginia Tech was driving and got it down to the Marshall, actually 31-yard line. It's 4th down and 1, but they jumped early, and it ended up being 4th down and 6, and Marshall made a stop. Marshall goes to 3-0 overall, 2-0 in the Sun Belt. They get Georgia State, which is a great football game coming up. But what a huge ball game for Marshall as a team, as a program. And I want to give credit to Virginia Tech. I'm sure Brent Pry, could have gotten out of this deal, but he knows his team is down. He knows this is not where Virginia Tech wants to be. They dropped to 1-3, 0-2 on the road. Marshall, or 0-2. Yeah, it says 0-2 on the road. So it's Marshall. I'm reading home. So Marshall's only 1-0 in the Sun Belt. Sorry about that. Marshall was the team that was favored. At one point in time, they were favored by 7. It went down to 4.5 or 5, something like that. May have been 6 by the time the game kicked off. Let's see what it said it was here. 5.5. And Marshall did cover that on Saturday. But again, here's the problem, right? That Herd fans are going to have. It's not aesthetically pleasing. Cam Fancher, 67. Try that again. Cam Fancher, 16 for 27, only 160 yards, and the 2 picks. Does throw 1 touchdown, somewhere along the way, whether it be against Georgia State or GMU or JMU, Georgia Southern, or whomever in the East. It's going to be a problem if he doesn't play better than that. All right. It's really hard for me to understand about complaining about a starting quarterback that is 9-1. All right. Is the defense good? Sure. Is the running back good? Sure. But somewhere along the way, Cam Fancher is going to take that next step. And it doesn't even have to be that big a step. You got to stop making some mistakes. But I think Marshall is going to be okay, and really looking forward to this ball game against Georgia State this weekend. On the other hand, you got Troy. So I picked Marshall. All right. Ends up being a win-win with Troy because Troy wins and Western Kentucky covers. All right. I did actually have Western Kentucky in this ball game, but Troy has slowly, if not very quickly, turned things around. They have not looked good through the first 3 weeks of the season defensively. They just haven't. And this was a really good test against a very high-powered offense in Western Kentucky and Austin Reed, and they did a really good job for the most part. They did fall behind 7-0, but then they never trailed after that. They got it to be a 17-7 lead in the third quarter, right out of the gate, and they ended up leading by 10 in the second half. They did allow a late touchdown, and they did give the ball back, but they did a good job defensively and winning the ball game against what is a tough team, and they are starting to come together. They are 2-2 overall. Let me see. I'm not sure if they're. And they are 0-1 in the Sun Belt. And they do play at Georgia State, which is going to be a heck of a football. Oh, they're at Georgia State? Let me see. Timeout. New 20. Troy is at Georgia State. My bad. Oh, so maybe it's Troy and then Marshall. Whoopsie. It is. My bad. Got everybody excited. It is Troy and then Marshall against Georgia State. So sorry about that. But nonetheless, Troy is starting to come together. All right. There's a lot of people to replace from last year's team. Gunnar Watson actually had a huge day. Gunnar Watson. Not someone you're expecting to throw for over 300 yards. And he did. 349 yards and a touchdown. No interceptions. That's a big ball game by Gunnar Watson. All right. Kamani Vidal, he scored a couple of touchdowns. He bounced back from what was not a great game against JMU. 156 yards. But the big play was Hail Mary at the end of the first half. Chris Lewis caught it, and he had a big catch in the fourth quarter as well. Only had 3 catches, but 101 yards and a touchdown. So Watson has 349. Vidal has 156. And Chris Lewis had 3 catches for 101 yards. And I think Chris Lewis was the difference in the ballgame. A little bit strange. But good for John Summerall. Should learn not to bet against John Summerall and Troy. Although in this case I did win, but probably not the way I thought. I really thought that Western Kentucky was probably going to win by 10. I really did. And the more I do this on, the more FanDuel I do, the more I realize so few people know exactly what games are not going to go the way people think they're going to go. Very few times. I'd say 10 to 20% maybe of the games we pick. Doesn't mean the result doesn't end up that way. That's different. But the games generally don't go the way we think they're going to go. All right. Generally speaking. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, South Alabama back to square one. I wish I knew what was wrong with the Jaguars, but they are struggling. That is for sure. Time to tell you about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it fun and easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. South Alabama coming off a win against Oklahoma State. And again, last week, first of all, a couple things. I said this on the radio this week on 103.3 The GOAT. These teams and these games seem to be unless you are the upper echelon, week to week to week. No two games are the same. No 2 weeks are the same. And so last week, Cajuns, Jaguars, LSU, and South Alabama all played really well. Every single one of them did. Cajuns UAB, LSU was Mississippi State, South Alabama was Oklahoma State. Oh, and Cuse. I know if I mentioned the Cuse. And the Cuse over Purdue. Okay. My problem was I wasn't sure if it was the team I was rooting for was really good or the other teams were really bad. Well, we're not sure about South Alabama anymore because they got out to a 14-0 lead and end up losing at home 34-30 to a team that they were favored by 16. All right, a little bit overrated, maybe a little bit too few points, but even if you 10-point favorite, all right, go look up what Central Michigan's defensive stats were. They're awful. South Alabama is going sideways. And I'm trying to figure it out. Some really bad play calling, some really poor execution. The defense had no idea what to do against CMU. None whatsoever. And then when you know it, they end up taking the lead. And they need a stop. And they can't get Bauer? They couldn't get the CMU quarterback down. Couldn't get him down. Not bringing any pressure. And then the game's on the line. I think they said it was 4th and 5. I thought I read it was 4th and 5, but I thought it was 4th and 10. They're going to face a 4th and 10. And now I got to go to the play-by-play. And somewhere along the way, Quentin Wilfon, veteran player, been there a bit. Been there a minute. He loses his cool and rips someone's face mask off or helmet off. Gets a 15-yard personal foul. So instead of 4th down and 5 or 4th down and 10, it's a 1st down. We're going from either at the outer range of field goal range and going for it on 4th down where you may actually win the football game to 1st down and 10 inside the 20 or around the 20. Unbelievable turn of events. I'm not even sure that Kane Womack knew what happened when it did. Maybe I'm sure someone told him afterwards. I'm sure Quentin Wilfon told him afterwards. But a really inexcusable losing of the cool. If Central Michigan goes down, they convert the 4th down, kick a field goal to tie it up. You lose an OT. Okay, it's disappointing. But in this case, and it's tough to point at one player in this case, Quentin Wilfon cost his team a chance at a win. Kane Womack said it after the game. You know, we put our personal egos ahead. He does claim that the other teams are chippy a lot. That comes out. If you ever watch a press conference, the other team is chippy. They're chippy. We did a good job keeping our cool. South Alabama didn't keep their cool. Here it is. It's going to be 4th down and 7 at the South Alabama 35-yard line. So either you're either going for it on 4th and 7, or you're kicking a 52-yard field goal. With, by the way, would it have been a minute 22? No, I guess that's when maybe that's when the drive started. But Quentin Wilfon's 15-yard penalty sends it to the South Alabama 20. 1, 2, 3, 4 plays later. Touchdown, Central Michigan. And South Alabama is scratching their heads again. South Alabama, to me, it's inexplicable how South Alabama has played well for 1, 2, 6, 7 quarters out of 16. Played well one quarter, about 15 minutes against Tulane. They played good in the second half against Southeastern. They played well against Oklahoma State. So that's 7 right there, we'll say, even though not very well in the third. Defensively, they shut them out, so we'll say well. All right. So we're up to 8, actually. 8 quarters because they played well in the first quarter against CMU. I don't consider giving up 14 points in the fourth quarter playing well. Play good defense in the fourth quarter, you win the football game, right? Don't get shut out in the second quarter. That's bad football. And This team is too good and too talented, and I don't understand what is going on. All right. Again, there's some plays that with a little bit more air, a little bit more touch by Carter Bradley, going to make these things a little bit easier to catch. Certainly not all on him. LaDainian Webb is outstanding. Colin Lacey is outstanding. Carter Bradley should be better than 17 out of 27 with this team. All right. LaDainian Webb, kind of an average day for him. 18 carries, 68 yards. Colin Lacey, really good 6 catches, 132 yards, and a couple of scores. They were down 10, and he made a catch, stayed on his feet, and was able to take it into the end zone, made it a 1-score game. That was really the huge play of the game for South Alabama, just to be able to get close. I wish I knew what was going on there. And by the way, now it gets hard. Now it gets hard. Now they're going to, they're going to JMU. That's on ESPNU this weekend. That was supposed to be a huge ball game. South Alabama's probably are they a touchdown underdog? 4.5-point underdog. That seems low. I mean, I hope South Alabama plays well. I don't know who I'm going to pick. I'll probably pick South Alabama. Well, no, I'll probably pick JMU. They're the better football team. To win by 4.5? South Alabama hasn't shown anything to win this football game. No. Certainly not going to bet that way. But JMU should win this football game. JMU's been inconsistent within the games. They're the ones that are 4-0 and 1-0 in the conference. They figured out how to win some of these, what would Murphy ball games that Ken Womack would talk about. They figured it out. South Alabama hasn't. South Alabama won a lot of close ball games last year. Not this year. They ain't winning close ball games. They have not played well this year. They have certainly not played well up to expectations. Not whatsoever. All right, let's take a timeout. A little bit of a rant there. When we come back, how good is Texas State? Are they the team to beat in the West? Let me tell you about Athletic Brewing and this week's Game Changer. Now time for your Game Changer of the Week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Chris Lewis from the Troy Trojans, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Chris Lewis, 3 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown, and he catches a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and he is the game changer for the Troy Trojans this week in their 27-24 victory over Western Kentucky. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good, full of flavor, well-crafted, just like full-strength beer. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewingcompany.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewingcompany.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We'll do more of a full recap of the conference. Georgia Southern bounced back, and JMU had a interesting ball game. Cajuns almost handed one away. We'll do more of that for Tuesday, so don't think I forgot about anybody from the weekend. But how good is Texas State? Well, that was a heck of a game in itself. There is a reason Nevada has now lost 14 straight ball games. So I was producing the Raging Cajuns, or helping produce the Raging Cajuns ball game on Saturday, and that was the one score I hadn't checked out, was Texas State. And when you know it, they're down 17-0 at half. Well, somehow they come away with a couple of scores, and they make it a 17-14 ball game. I mean, I don't know how the first half went. I know how the second half went. All right. And Texas State comes out, gets a touchdown to begin with. They actually fumble the ball away, but they force a punt. Texas State scores a touchdown, makes it 17-14. Nevada fumble, Texas State touchdown. Nevada fumble, Texas State touchdown. Nevada downs, Texas State touchdown. I mean, Nevada has lost 14 games in a row for a reason. A lot of times we hear this, and I don't necessarily agree with Texas State, or not Texas State. It's coaches. Well, it's not really about them. It's about us, okay? And as much as Texas State played much better in the second half, that was about Nevada. All right, they're just not a good football team. They do not know how to finish. They are awful defensively. Give credit to G.J. Kinney's guys for, keeping their heads up and, not sulking down 14-0. Ishmael Mahdi, 216 yards on the ground on just 21 carries, by the way, averaging 10 yards a pop. He scored 2 touchdowns. TJ Finley, a really efficient 25 of 31, 295 yards, couple of touchdowns. Did throw an interception in the first half. The only reason that Texas State did not cover, Brendan Lewis, the starting quarterback, tweaked a knee on the last drive of the game, and A.J. Bianco comes in. Hilarious. First play, 43 yards to a wide open receiver. They end up punching it in for a touchdown a couple of plays later. But how good is Texas State? We'll see. All right. They could give the Cajuns trouble. The Cajuns play Minnesota this week and then welcome in Texas State. Texas State's going to Southern Miss, and Southern Miss has their problems. My goodness, do they have some issues? Although the offense did show up against Arkansas State this week, the defense was nowhere to be found. But Texas State, just watching them, they stack receivers, 2 on each side, and that was an issue for the Cajuns against ODU. And we're finding out ODU ain't all that great. So we'll see. Not to get off the subject too much, Cajuns defense was really good until the Cajuns offense started to implode. That's what we'll talk about tomorrow. But, Texas State is 3-1. What was their over-under? Like 4.5, 5? My goodness, they are going to beat that. Right now, at least after Saturday's action, they're the best team in the West. Troy may be second. We'll see about the Cajuns. The Cajuns are doing too many self-inflicted wounds. Got no idea about South Alabama. Southern Miss ain't it this year. Arkansas State's all of a sudden won a couple in a row. And ULM is ULM. But Texas State, if you ask me, who's the best team right now between Texas State, Troy, the Cajuns, and South Alabama, it's Texas State. When do they play Troy, by the way? That's going to be a big ball game all of a sudden. They are at Southern Miss, the Cajuns, hosting. They actually have a 3-game homestand, so that's a big month for them at home with a week off. They get Monroe, Troy, and Georgia Southern at home. That's a big spot for Texas State. It is not easy. They do get Arkansas State, but they Southern Miss, Cajuns, ULM, Troy, Georgia Southern, at Coastal, at Arkansas State, and then home versus South Alabama. How good is Texas State right now is a big question. Did not play well in the first half. Didn't sulk, didn't pout. Put up 35 second-half points to, no points in the second half until those of us who had Texas State minus 17 really cared about it. It is what it is. All right. Maybe we'll go over one of those small betting stories on during the week because it was, brutal. It was just brutal. All right. I guess a bad beat, but someone just couldn't have waited 3 minutes to tell me that I won. Couldn't have waited 3 minutes. Anyways, okay. So I think Texas State right now is the best team in the West. And we'll see what happens. They got a couple of big games coming up on the road. Again, much more to do this week when we recap the rest of the conference. JMU may be the best team in the conference. Cajuns have a shot against Minnesota. I thoroughly believe that. If they can stop shooting themselves in the foot, both execution-wise and decision-wise, and that's coach's decision-wise. They had some odd decisions that there was no reason. Both of Zeon Chris's interceptions are not on Zeon Chris. They're on the coach's staff. 2 bad decisions there. All right. Again, thank you so much. Almost 700. Maybe by the time I wake up, we'll have 700 subscriptions. Really appreciate it. You never know. We're actually like a week ahead of where I thought we were going to be. So maybe we can get 300 in the next 5 weeks and get to 1,000 by Halloween. That would be a huge, huge deal. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning into Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you again on Tuesday.